Now what the hell do you think you're doing with that tin star, boy?
Watch that boy shit, redneck. You talking to the sheriff of Rock Ridge.
What if the wildest, most chaotic comedy ever made only worked because of one man who barely said a word? Not the loudest, not the flashiest, just a quiet figure with trembling hands and haunted eyes. In a film full of slapstick and absurdity, he was the calm in the storm. And here's the twist. He was never even supposed to be there. Gene Wilder stepped into Blazing Saddles at the last second, unprepared and unrehearsed, and delivered a performance that changed the film, and maybe even comedy itself, forever. But what most fans missed was the secret he left behind. Join us as we dive into the hidden genius of Gene Wilder in Blazing Saddles and uncover the quiet truth that reshaped comedy history. A replacement with a shaking hand. When Mel Brooks began filming Blazing Saddles, everything was going according to plan, until it wasn't. The role of the Waco Kid, a weary old gunslinger with a broken soul, had already been cast. Gig Young, a respected Oscar winner, was supposed to bring the gravitas. On paper, it made perfect sense, but on the very first day of filming, something was seriously wrong. Young was sweating, shaking, slurring his lines. Some people on set thought maybe he was going for a gritty, method performance. But as the morning dragged on, the truth became unavoidable. This wasn't acting. Gig Young was in the grip of full-blown alcohol withdrawal. By midday, he collapsed on set. Production stopped. Silence. What followed was one of the most frantic behind-the-scenes moments in comedy history. With the studio breathing down his neck and the entire film at risk, Mel Brooks had no time for auditions, no patience for contracts or agents. He reached for the phone and made a single call to a man he trusted, Gene Wilder. Now here's where it gets wild. Wilder didn't ask questions, not about the money, not about the script. He didn't even know what role he was agreeing to. He simply said yes. Less than 24 hours later, he stepped off a flight and walked straight onto the set, jet-lagged, unrehearsed, and completely unprepared. Or so it seemed, because the moment he put on the costume and took his place in front of the camera, something eerie happened. Gene Wilder didn't find the Waco Kid. He was the Waco Kid. No one could explain it. There were no practice runs, no line readings, just a man stepping into chaos and instantly becoming the calm in the storm. The gunslinger with shaking hands, the quiet man with haunted eyes. And from that moment forward, nothing in Blazing Saddles would be the same. Wilder's performance wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy. In fact, it was the exact opposite of what Hollywood expected from comedy in the 1970s. But that's what made it unforgettable. And here's the twist. This performance, this iconic role, was never meant for him. He was the backup, the emergency call, the guy who said yes when everything was falling apart. And yet, he didn't just save the film, he gave it a soul. Stillness in the storm. From his very first scene, slouched in a jail cell, half-drunk and utterly indifferent, Gene Wilder did something no one anticipated. He didn't go big. He didn't reach for punchlines. He played it straight. Not because he couldn't be funny, but because he knew the comedy would land harder if he didn't try to force it. According to Mel Brooks, Wilder had only one condition for taking the role. He wouldn't play it for laughs. And it was that exact choice that transformed Blazing Saddles from a riotous parody into a masterpiece of contrast. Think about it. In a film filled with fart jokes, breaking the fourth wall, slapstick gags, and over-the-top villains, the Waco Kid sits back. He watches, he comments, but his tone is dry, almost mournful. He's not part of the circus, he's the man who's already seen the circus burn down. The genius was in his restraint, and when the camera closed in on his trembling hands, you didn't just laugh, you felt something. You saw a character who wasn't just comic relief, but someone damaged, someone human, and it shook you. Wilder's stillness became the eye of the storm. Around him, characters were exploding with energy. Mongo was punching horses. Hedley Lamar was spitting out Shakespearean villainy. Sheriff Bart was breaking racial boundaries with a wink and a smile. And yet, it was Wilder's Waco Kid, quiet, reflective, broken, who made it all work. His timing was so precise, so unexpected, that he became the most quotable character in a film overflowing with quotes. "You've got to remember," he says with a straight face, "these are simple people. The common clay of the New West. You know, morons." Mel Brooks later admitted that they had to film that line repeatedly. Not because Wilder couldn't deliver it, but because the crew couldn't stop laughing. Boom operators, cameramen, even Brooks himself. Everyone kept breaking. That was the power of Gene Wilder. He wasn't loud. He didn't demand your attention. He stole it quietly and never gave it back. But here's the part most people never noticed. Beneath the deadpan delivery, Wilder layered something darker, something almost tragic. The Waco Kid isn't just a joke. He's a man who's lost everything. His reputation, his nerve, maybe even his will to live. His alcoholism isn't just for laughs. It's a mask. And Wilder plays that sadness not with tears or monologues, but with silence, with hesitations, with weary gazes and trembling fingers. That's what makes the character unforgettable. Not the jokes, but the pain underneath them. A legacy written between the lines. Behind the scenes, Wilder's presence wasn't just essential, it was vital. While Mel Brooks was a whirlwind of creativity and chaos, Gene Wilder was the anchor. He calmed tempers. He coached nervous actors. He helped shape not just scenes, but tone. According to those on set, Wilder was the film's unofficial director of restraint. He was the reason the comedy didn't tip into complete absurdity. He gave it balance, heart, humanity. But even that wasn't all he was doing. In between takes, while the crew was resetting lights or cleaning up after another gag, Wilder was quietly pitching ideas to Brooks. One of those ideas? A little concept about a man who didn't want to be associated with his infamous grandfather, a certain young Frankenstein. That's right, the idea that would become one of the greatest horror comedies of all time was born in the downtime of Blazing Saddles. While everyone else was riding out the madness, Wilder was building a future. And yet perhaps his most significant contribution was one you'll never see on camera. When studio executives began pushing back, demanding changes to soften the film's racial commentary, Wilder stood with Brooks, silently but firmly. He wasn't a producer, he wasn't a writer, but he understood the importance of the satire. He knew that the film's power came from its willingness to offend, to unsettle, to challenge. So he didn't cave, he didn't blink. And in doing so, he helped preserve one of the most subversive comedies ever made. So what is Gene Wilder's legacy in Blazing Saddles? It's not just the one-liners, not just the laughs, it's the stillness, the humanity, the heartbreak. It's the fact that in a film that tried to be louder, Wilder chose to be quieter. And in doing so, he echoed the real message of the film, that sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones that barely speak. Decades later, that choice continues to resonate. Blazing Saddles has been preserved by the Library of Congress as a culturally significant work. And while many remember the outrageous scenes and boundary-breaking humor, those who look closer see something more. They see Gene Wilder, the ghost in the saddle, the man who saved a film just by showing up, the actor who whispered truth into comedy, the performer who didn't need to be loud, to be unforgettable. Now that you've seen Blazing Saddles through Gene Wilder's eyes, what do you think you missed before? Was there a moment that suddenly hit different? A scene that wasn't just funny, but real? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. If this story gave you a new lens on a classic film, hit that like button. It helps more people find these hidden Hollywood stories. And if you want more behind-the-scenes reveals and deep dives into forgotten genius, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, watch closely. Because the quietest performances? They're often the ones you remember forever.